What's up, everyone? Wrigley Willis back again with the Semi Average podcast for today's Friday upload. Now, what I want to do with these Friday uploads is keep them a little more chill, if you will. Just get into some things that I want to talk about with some of my favorite teams. I want to get into some like 2K and Madden rebuilds where we can put teams that have hot topics around them, like the Rockets. That's what I was planning to today. I just don't have the equipment yet. But put them into 2K, rebuild them in that sim engine that, might not be the greatest thing in the world that works very efficiently, but it's something it's just fun to look at and see how teams can look in the future because obviously we don't have that tool in real life. But for today's episode, I wanted to get into not necessarily what the Bills' game plan is for Saturday. I want to get into my perfect offseason, if you will, for Buffalo. And regardless of what happens on Saturday, if they win or lose, it doesn't, we're just talking what's going to happen after the Super Bowl, if you will. Get into the draft, free agency, and stuff to do with the staff. So first things first, the Bills exploded on offense this year, as many of y'all know, and part of that, obviously they have great playmakers on offense, and Josh Allen and Diggs and Beasley and John Brown, Gabe Davis, Singletary, Zach Moss, tons of playmakers everywhere, and I'm really, really happy with what the players have done. But it all started with Brian Daboll. He's a genius play caller. Even though in that playoff game against Indianapolis, there were a lot of questionable calls that a lot of people were talking on Twitter about, including me. And going into it, the perfect offseason, if you will, is that Brian Daboll stays with Buffalo to continue being the OC, but his contract's up. It's time for him to get a promotion. He's probably going to go to the Chargers. Obviously, we saw Robert Saleh sign with the Jets on a 5-year deal, so he's not going to the Jets anymore. That was a rumored place. But I think the Chargers are a very realistic destination for him. They got the mock-up of the same offense as the Bills do, big quarterback that can sling it, wide receiver talent everywhere. I think Daboll will do a great job as a head coach of the Chargers if he goes there. But the big job for the Bills is filling that offensive coordinator position, which they have relied on so well, which has accounted for a lot of their success. And in my opinion, I think they should keep it in-house with their signing and promote the quarterback coach, Ken Dorsey, who a lot of people give him all of the credit for what Josh Allen has done this year in terms of his improvement, even though that's been Jordan Palmer and Daboll more importantly. Obviously, Ken Dorsey is the quarterback's coach who's always in his ear, who's going over reads, who's helped him with his accuracy problem. But that also the biggest improvements from Allen stemmed from Daboll and Jordan Palmer, or not, Jordan Rogers, I think is his name. Aaron Rodgers' brother, who was on The Bachelor, I think, was Josh Allen's quarterback coach over the offseason. They completely retooled his mechanics and, with this point on his throw, his hip movement, everything's been fixed and better, and that's why his accuracy went so far up. But Ken Dorsey's the perfect guy to put in line. He knows the system. He's going to run pretty much the same offense as Dorsey. Hopefully the play calling is just as good, if not better, for Dorsey next year, assuming that he gets that job and assuming that Daboll leaves, because those are probably the most likelihoods in those scenarios. So I'd be very happy with Ken Dorsey as the OC going into next season for Buffalo. Congrats to Daboll for doing his job as a great OC. He's going to get a big promotion. He deserves it. He's going to make a lot of money. And hopefully he, becomes a great NFL coach, because I love seeing, quarterback trees, if you will. And if Dorsey, if Daboll does a great job with the Chargers next year, whatever team he's coaching for, that'll be cool. But it all starts with Dorsey as getting the OC. Now, if we were to go into free agency and trades, if you will, there are three main things I want to see happen with Buffalo. And I think it's the perfect time for the Bills to really spend in free agency, which they've never really done before. They've, signed guys like John Brown and Cole Beasley to come in as guys who low production, not in the right system, could be a lot better. And the Bills turn them into great players who fit the scheme perfectly, who are a part of a 13-3 offense that was top 5 offense in the league this year. In free agency, however, I think they need to go after some top dogs, and there's two guys I want to talk about immediately. The first one being Trey Hendrickson. I think the Bills should definitely invest in the New Orleans Saints edge rusher. He was the best edge rusher this year for the Saints, arguably, because Cam Jordan was taking up a lot of he was the main focal point of OCs preparing against the Saints defense. Trey Hendrickson ended up having 12 and a half sacks this year. Top 4 in the league, I think. He was number 3 or 4. But the Bills certainly need edge rush help. We saw that in the Colts game, in the playoff game. they're lacking it big time. I mean, they couldn't touch Rivers. They couldn't get anywhere near him. Now, granted, the Colts have an amazing offensive line. Rivers didn't get sacked much this year at all. But when we talk about the grand scheme of things for Buffalo and what their weak points are, it's definitely edge help and getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes are decent enough edge rushers as right now. Both of them were, serviceable this year, but both of them are in their 30s as well. So a youth movement needs to be started somewhat for the Bills. I don't think they're going to target edge in the draft as outside of the top three guys. There's not a lot of edge rushers in this class that fit the scheme while also being a player that can come in and play right away for Buffalo. I know Epinez is set to have, come up next year. But you got to think super long term. And first of all, is Epineza ready to be a starter for a playoff team? Probably not. So when Hughes and Addison are gone in 2 or 3 years from either burning out from where they are now or retiring, the edge has to be addressed. It needs to be addressed now. So the first free agency move I'd like to see the Bills make is signing Trey Hendrickson. He's obviously going to be asking for a lot of money, but I think he's worth it after having a breakout year. He's going to want to go to a team where he's going to start and be a great player, be a focal point of the defense, and I think it's a perfect situation for him in Buffalo. Being the edge rusher he is after a great year, he's probably going to ask for upwards of 12.5 mil going in. Let me just fix my mic real quick. But he's probably going to ask for around 12 mil, which is a lot of money. But the Bills have the cap space, not a lot of it compared to last year, but they have around, I think, 27 mil. So there's one signing that I'd really like them to make. And getting into the second one, which I don't think a lot of people are going to expect, but I'd really like to see the Bills make a push for Seahawks running back Chris Carson. It's a very high likelihood he will not be returning to Seattle in the offseason. He hasn't, he's had his issues in Seattle for sure. The fumble problems, obviously the Seahawks, they seem to not trust in him very much. He's been injury prone. But for Buffalo, you got two running backs on rookie deals that are very cheap. Singletary is going to be a free agent next offseason, and they're not going to pay him. They shouldn't. If they do, that's going to be a big mistake. Zach Moss, we just saw have that injury. And the running back room, other than those two, is Antonio Williams, who had one good game against Miami in the second half, and TJ Yeldon, who, obviously he has not panned out to the player that we all thought he would be. So bringing in a guy like Chris Carson, who has big playability, fits the offense so well, and it'll open so many things up. If the Bills can really start establishing the run more of a, not that they're just going to run the ball, but they could gash you for 8, 7, 11 up and down the field through the run game. That would be, that makes the offense for Buffalo the number one offense in the league if they can bring that in. And I think a viable option would be Chris Carson. And I think he's looking for an opportunity as well to prove, hey, I'm a top 10, 12 running back in the league. I deserve to be a starting running back on a good championship contending team that's going to rush for 900 plus yards and have 8+ touchdowns. And Chris Carson's that guy. And I think due to his injury concerns, his fumbling ability, and the fact that the Seahawks kind of lost trust in him ever since he was drafted out of Oklahoma State, or he wasn't drafted out of Oklahoma State. Not entirely sure where Chris Carson's from. It might be OK State. I'll check on that in a second. But I think that would be so dynamic for the offense, and having a legit bell cow running back, even though he's not a power guy, he's, bell cow is a figure of speech. You can hand the ball off to him 3 times in a row if you wanted to. Would be a massive upgrade for the offense. And I think it would officially vault them into a top 5 offense in the league, no doubt. There's no other teams you could throw in. Because then the playmakers, you look at Allen at quarterback with an offensive line that's steadily improving every year with the young guys that they have. And then you throw in Chris Carson, already has Diggs, Beasley, Gabe Davis. I'm assuming John Brown is going to leave in free agency, or he's just going to fall out of the rotation. Gabe Davis has proven that he deserves snaps, especially after those 2 toe drag catches against Indianapolis. He looked great. His route running's gotten worlds better since the start of the year. He has drop problems, but he's a rookie, so with time, that'll get better. Cole Beasley's elite, and obviously you have Stephon Diggs. But now I want to get into the third move that I want them to make. It's not necessarily a free agency move, but I think it'll happen around the free agency time. And that is, I would like to see the Bills trade for Zach Ertz. Now, is Zach Ertz a free agent is the thing. And we're going to Google this now. Just one second. Because I know Carson and Hendrickson are free agents. And I was really looking into that to see, when I was looking through all the free agents, I was like, who could they sign? Who can they sign? And I saw those two guys. But Zach Ertz, I wasn't sure if he's a free agent. So I'm going to Google this now. He signed a 5-year, $42.5 million contract. So he's still going to be on the Eagles payroll. So that brings me to this point. I think the Bills, if you were to trade for a player, I think Zach Ertz is the perfect player to trade for. He fits the scheme of the offense from the tight end position. He's a vertical threat who can block well, who, once again, a guy who's had injury. He's very similar to Chris Carson in terms of how the past couple of years have been. A proven talent in the league. Zach Ertz, coming into the season even, people were saying, obviously, you got Kittle and Kelsey, whoever you want to go 1-2. And then who's the third guy? Is it Mark Andrews? Is it Darren Waller? Is it Zach Ertz? And a lot of people are still leaning Zach Ertz. He's had injury problems. Obviously, from that play that we saw week 17 where he didn't block for Carson Wentz on purpose, it's pretty apparent that he wants out of Philadelphia. He's accustomed to winning. He's in his entire career with Philadelphia, he's been winning. And I think he's looking for a change of scenery, as most Eagles players probably are at this time. So when you talk about what other positions the Bills could use for an immediate upgrade, we went over D-end, we went over running back, and I think tight end's another perfect spot for them. They have a kind of tight end by committee look. Tyler Kroft's been injured for multiple weeks now, so he hasn't played a lot. But it's Knox, Kroft, and Lee Smith for blocking plays in red zone. So if you bring in a guy like Zach Ertz, obviously you let Dawson Knox walk. He has not been great with the Bills. He has a big playability, which is nice, but the drops and the missed blocking assignments are so tough to watch sometimes, and he's hindered the offense in a lot of points this year. And then Tyler Kroft, serviceable backup, if you will, for Zach Ertz if this were to happen. And then Lee Smith's your typical come in on run plays, big fullback, if you will. But when we talk about Ertz's value going into free agency this year, it's probably not as high as you'd expect. I think Philly's going to be selling for any draft picks that they can pick up. And with Zach Ertz being on a somewhat big contract, he's set to make $6.5 million next year. With Philadelphia entering the rebuild phase probably once they find a new head coach, I think they're going to be able to ship Ertz pretty easily within their own mindset. Like they're not going to be bargaining for a second-round pick for him, if you will. So hypothetically, if you want to get into it, a 3 and a future 5 from Buffalo could get Zach Ertz for the next 3 years in Buffalo. Then you talk about the offense, which then, if you were to bring in Chris Carson too, we'll have Allen, Diggs, Beasley, Brown, Gabe Davis, Zach Ertz, and Chris Carson. That offense would be, that's set for the next 3 years. Book it, number 3 offense in the league, Super Bowl contending team. It's easy. And this all stems from the idea that Buffalo has proven that they can win with the talent that they have, and that now that they're a free agency destination with the money that they have too. It's going to be interesting to see what they do this free agency. I expect them to go full buy-in. Philadelphia Eagles, if you will, sign whoever can make a big play for you come playoff time, for example. Ertz is that guy. He's been a top 5 tight end for the past 3 years, despite the injuries. And bringing him in would be amazing for the Buffalo offense, because when you have Diggs running a 15-yard dig, you have Beasley coming across the middle, and then you have Brown going deep on a post, and then you have Ertz sitting for a 6-yard out. That offense, spread it 5 wide every single time, if you will. It's going to be awesome to watch. All of these are hypotheticals, obviously, but this would be my perfect dream off season. But then when you get into the draft, when we're talking about a late first round pick for Buffalo, it's going to be anywhere between 26 and 32, however they shake up, or 24 to 32, however they shake up in the next couple of weeks. I'd like to see them go corner in the first round. There's a lot of great late corners like J.C. Horn, Paulson Adebo, guys like that, when you look at the Bills' corner room, Josh Norman is not in your future plans, even if he plays next year. Obviously, you have Trey White, who's your solid, going to be there for the next 10 years guy. Who's that second corner on this team, though? You go Levi Wallace, who's proven that he isn't a cornerback two when thrown into the position. Great story, undrafted, came into Buffalo, played well, is still playing well. But when you're talking about your second boundary corner, Levi Wallace cannot be that for a team that's going to be setting up to be a dynasty over the next couple of years. So seeing them draft a corner in the first round would be perfect for me. And in the later rounds, addressing offensive line, specifically the interior. Darrell Williams played a lot better than I expected this year. And obviously, Deion Dawkins signed a big extension, and he's been great, and he's going to be in Buffalo for the rest of his career probably. I'd like them to. I'd like to see them go interior offensive line. They've had a lot of guard struggles this year. With Ike Botker, one of the best run guards in the league, but in the past game he's god awful. And you look at Mitch Morse, who's had injury struggles, John Feliciano, who's strictly a passing guard rather than a run blocking guard. They could definitely use an upgrade on the interior of the offensive line, especially with Mitch Morse getting older too. I think he's turning 30 in this offseason. So that's where I would go, depending on trades that might happen. If they bring in a guy like Zach Ertz, second or third round, bring in almost a project guard who's got the frame, has proven to be good at the college level, that you can develop behind guys like Feliciano and Botker for a year or two, and then they can be a proven starter going forward. And then you get into the later rounds, maybe another receiver, pick up someone super late, another safety, since both of our safeties are getting old, and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, maybe a guy, homegrown like Andre Cisco or Obi Melanfanu is there in the fourth or fifth round that you can pick up, have him be a really good special teams player, and then develop them to be the starter one day if all things go right. But yeah, that would be my perfect offseason. It all starts with hiring Ken Dorsey, staying in-house as the OC, assuming that Daboll leaves, which will probably happen. If we're talking perfect offseason, 100% perfect, Daboll doesn't leave, but the man deserves a promotion, and he's going to be out the door going to a team to be their head coach, whether it be the Chargers or the Texans or the Eagles. He'll be somewhere. And then signing guys like Chris Carson and Trey Hendrickson, you're getting that edge help. You're getting that guy who can have 11 plus sacks in a season that defenses are going to have to game plan for. And you also get a running back who can open up your offense both in the run game and the pass game. Chris Carson has fumble issues, has injury issues, but with a good running back committee that's on rookie contracts behind him, I think you can spend on a player like that and maybe even give him one of those tryout contracts, 2 years, 22 mil, overpay him to come in and be that guy for a little bit, and that bell cow running back that we talk about. And then the Zach Ertz trade, that's more of a shot in the dark than anything else that we've talked about. Zach Ertz, I think a lot of teams are going to be inquiring about him. He's going to be a top trade target coming up in this offseason. And Buffalo definitely needs tight end help. And if they really just want to put an all-star cast offense out there, then Chris Carson and Zach Ertz are two guys that I really think they should look forward to coming in this summer. But yeah, that about wraps it up. Oh, in the draft, I think they should go corner in the late first, whether that be J.C. Horn or Paulson Adebo, interior offensive line in the second or third, and then wide receiver, safety, and maybe just another corner in the later rounds, maybe even another running back as well. So yeah, that's going to be our Friday upload, going over the my perfect Bills off season. Thanks for tuning in. These are going to be shorter every single time that we do this. The Monday, Wednesday, Saturday uploads are meant to be anywhere between 40 and 50 minutes. While this one's supposed to be brief and simple, just a quick check-in to see how y'all are doing. So if you agree with me on the perfect offseason for the Bills, let me know in the comments. And if there's anything else that you would do with Buffalo in the offseason that's coming up, let me know. So as always, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe. My name is Wrigley Willis with the Semi Average Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and go Bills.